Okay, dating for blonde and ditzies. Okay, dating for so I made notes at the bottom of each and every book. And I kind of like summed them up. I had this puzzle. It's like, okay, so what is mine going to be? Is it his perspective? Oh, I have like 6 of them. It's not that I'm discovering the moon once again. Her perspective, they all have tons of them. And then plus, who's reading the chick lit? Well, it's definitely not you. It's not the guys. It's the girls. So if I'm writing from that perspective, they're going to be interested. I mean, the guys don't read that. So when I studied like 20 of them, at the same time what I did, each and every author right now, you kind of have, I wouldn't say a certain reason to say thank you to each and every one of your agents or editors or publishers, but they do that. So it's like I'm thanking my agent for bringing this to life, I'm thanking my publisher, and I'm thanking to so and so and so. So I wrote down each and every name, and that's why I made 3 lists. 1 list of agents, 1 list with editors, 1 list with publishers. So then I gave myself another month and I did research. Okay, who is this guy? Who did he represent? What kind of genres besides dating? So it's a lot of research actually before you write. And that's why I said writing for me was 30%. The 70% initially was to put in all the things that will go into the writing process. And the writing process is 30% and it's another 100% that you're really going to go and you're going to promote yourself. Because nowadays, unless you're Michael Connelly or Elizabeth Gilbert, nobody's really going to open up its arms and they're going to say, yeah, we would love to have you on CBS. When would you be available? Oh my God, yes, we're just going to create our own schedule around you. It's nothing like that. So now you have to meet halfway. Your PR company, they're going to say, okay, we are going to do the PR for you, but what exactly are you going to do for yourself? And so they're going to, the first thing they're going to ask you, are you on Twitter? I'm on Facebook, but no, I'm asking you if you're on Twitter. Well, I'm tweeting like once in a blue moon. No good. Second, how many followers do you have on Twitter? How many followers do you have on Facebook? How many followers do you have on LinkedIn? How many connections do you have? Do you have a blog? So it's like they put a lot on your shoulder. It's not like 1950s when, okay, this is who I am. We have 6 writers. Everybody has heard about them. Right now, you are, each and every year, you have 300,000 books that are newly published. And with the new ebooks, it's 1.5 million. So you're competing with 1.5 million books that are out there. And unless your name is already a recognized name, nobody's going to look. I mean, literally, you are going to go to the cracks. It's like, who are you? What do you want? Why would I pick your book and pay $50 versus $18 of someone that I haven't seen and I haven't read? And people have, the way you wake up in the morning, and you do your same schedule over and over again. It's like that habit of doing. It's the same thing with reading. If I like a writer, I'm just going to constantly go back to his books. Rarely I'm just going to go and pick up a new book that is just recommended by a girlfriend of mine. And if I have like 10 writers, why would I pick the 11th one? Because I already have my reading each and every month done. Then it's like, yeah, okay, I haven't heard about this one, Chelsea. Okay, let's see, what is she about? Okay, well, she talks about vodka and sleeping around. Oh, that's awesome. Tuition. So you start kind of like checking more about their background. But otherwise, see, I took one day and I went to Barnes and Nobles and I was kind of like watching what people pick up. It's very interesting. I mean, most of the time for sales, people don't buy this kind of novels. Memoirs, non-memoirs, fiction, non-fiction. They go and buy cooking books. It's how-to, which is 70%. How I'm going to improve my life. How I'm going to find my soulmate. How I'm going to transform my mind upside down. How to. So this is like 30% that people buy. 70% is this easy lit. You don't look at the movies people watch. When was the last time you went to a psychological movie and you came out there like, oh my God, this is amazing? Probably there were 6 people in the theater. And then you go to this really horrible movie that is brain spread all over and blood and sex, and you have no clue what the plot line is. And then at the end, I mean, there are hordes of people coming out. God, am I just living in the wrong time? Right? So you have to find a way to cater to the masses, because if you're going to cater to whatever you think you are and whatever you know you can do, nobody's going to do it. To come back, like, the circle, to the title, okay? So my publisher, and I'm going to tell you how I found it, but my publisher was thinking about having the title Auras Romania. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I said, who is Aura and why would I give a damn about her? Okay, she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, who is she? What am I, Angelina Jolie? So then obviously I'm interested in her country, but otherwise, why would I be interested in nobody? Then she said Romania. I was like, people don't even know where Afghanistan is, okay? And Bush didn't know, and I said, so it doesn't really matter politically speaking. We don't know these countries
with the salad?
unless there is some sort of connection to the United States. And I said,
thank you.
I wouldn't know where Romania is, so why would others know? And she said, so I don't understand, what's your point? I said, my point is that you want a catchy title. And I'm from Romania, but I'm from Transylvania. Everybody's heard about Transylvania. So I'm going to use that one. I said, if people came from that part of the world, they didn't even come from that part of the world, actually, are writing books about Transylvania. Well, I came from that part of the world. I might as well use it. So she's like, okay, I can see your point. I was teaching Elie Wiesel, 9th, and so he came from Romania, from Transylvania. And he writes a book about Holocaust. And I was like, oh, wait a moment. 9th. That's kind of interesting. I said, how about Transylvania, 9th? And then my publisher said, okay, and I said, then you can come up with a preposition, whatever, the club. And so they came out of the Transylvania. So, and they literally, we went over and over the title a couple of times. It was Auras Romania. I was like, oh boy, next. She said, Auras Freedom. I said, freedom, it's 30%, 25%. It's one of the layers of my book. Why would I narrow down the whole plot to one layer? And she's like, okay, then it's going to be freedom, identity. I'm like, oh, boring. That can be subtitled if you want. Because I'm not going to read, I mean, people generally speaking read 3-word titles. Between 3 and 5 is the attention span. If I'm going to see like a long title and small print, I'm not going to read it. If it's night, twilight, whatever, 1 word. This is very interesting. Let me see the cover. Yeah, I'm buying it. So it's what appeals to the general public, and we're visuals, and we do judge a book by its cover.
Could you tell us a little bit about your book, like some of the highlights of
well, initially, as I said, I started writing a book about dating, and I read whatever was there, and then it so happened that I got a phone call from Romania that changed my life upside down. My mom had between 3 and 6 more months to live. They discovered that she has liver cancer, and it's last stage. And so initially she had melanoma and she had surgeries, and they said she's cancer free. So all of a sudden, after being, oh, it's perfect. It's like, well, we would have to deliver some bad news to her. So it gave me that time frame of 6 months that I said, what can I do in these 6 months that I'll never regret for the rest of my life? And if I go back to those 6 months, I've used my time properly. And I called because when you're on the contract, you do have to deliver the book by a certain deadline. And it so happened that I connected with my publisher. And she's also an author of 36 books translated into 28 languages. So she's been there. She's not just a publisher, she's a writer herself. And I said, listen, I know that I'm under contract. I said, but the last thing on my mind is right now dating and tongue-in-cheek situations. I don't care what those. And she said, why? So we met up and I told her, well, her mom passed away because of PMS. So she knew exactly where I was going, what I was going through. And she said, why don't you write 5 pages about the last week you've spent in Romania before you came to the United States? And I said, well, I don't know if I can write 5 pages on the last week, but I can totally write 5 pages on the last 5 minutes. Because what's going through your mind when you're going to go and relocate, and it's not that I'm relocating from San Diego to Los Angeles. I'm going to leave my country, I'm going to leave my origins and roots behind. I'm going to start all over, I'm going to give up the position I had with the university teaching as an assistant professor. I was a journalist, so I'm going to give all those things up and I'm going to start all over from ground zero doing what, I don't know, washing dishes. So I said I have tons of things going through my mind in those 5 minutes. So I wrote, and she read, and she said, do you know that you have a twin? Like 2 people writing differently, completely differently. So you have this sarcastic style where you're writing about dating, and now you have this very humorous and emotional one when you write about your life. And I said, well, I take my life seriously. I mean, yes, I'm poking fun, I'm making fun of myself, being blonde and ditzy and whatever, and having a horrible sense of direction all the time. But I said, well, when you're still going over your whole life, it's important, and nobody is going to say, well, I don't care how I've lived, or I don't care how I'm going to live from now on. And she said, okay, how about we're going to do a memoir? And I said, I can totally deliver that one. And she said, what exactly would you put in? I said, well, life during the communist regime, which was not an easy breeze. I said, second, I used to be a journalist. I had tons of interesting altercations. Then I said, being a senior in high school, you make plans that are going to be totally throw out the window because the revolution is going to start and your life is going to turn upside down, and whatever you've planned for, it's not going to be there anymore. Romania after the communist regime, yes, Dracula and Transylvania and all the legends and who is he, was he real or not. And I said, come here and kind of like associating with so many of us, not necessarily Americans or non-Americans, but you start from ground zero, and how many times people, you don't inherit, we are not Donald Trump, we are not Paris Hilton. It's not that you inherit a huge bulk of money and it's like, well, I'm just going to sit comfortably and hopefully my muse is going to knock at my door today because I feel like I'm going to write. So you have to support yourself while you're going to do that. And I started writing, and I can tell you this, I mean, it's been, when I was writing, initially this whole book was 500 pages. And so right now it's 300. And after I was done, I put everything in the past. So I was talking about my past, right? So I used past tense. Well, my editor is looking it over. She's like, well, I think it's going to be way more energetic if we're going to put present tense, because it's going to be now. So, okay, well, that makes sense. Went back and changed 500 pages. Okay, from past to present. Okay, so I'm done with that. And here is another meeting with 2 other editors, the line editor, the content editor, the publisher, agent, whatever. So they're looking it over like, I really think because the past has this patina of past, of antique stuff, and you're talking about something that happened before and it's historical. I think the past tense is going to go better. I was like, you're kidding me, right? They're like, no. I said, oh my God, I just finished this book again. I'm like, no. Already you should go back. Okay. I said, any other changes before I'm going to start chopping it again? And they said, yeah. My publisher said, well, first of all, statistically speaking, because she's also a writer, she said, people don't spend more than $15, $18 on a book. So you want to cater to people that can afford the book. You don't want to go with like $30 book that only a certain field, narrow field is going to buy. You write for the masses. It's not cultural writing. It's for whoever is interested in, for someone that's interested in history, someone that's interested in mysticism, someone that's interested in traveling. So you write for a large, tons of categories. So, okay. said, so we need to narrow it down to 300 pages from 500. Oh, okay. So she said, okay, so we're gonna keep the price down. Then she said, it's also the attention span. I said, oh yeah? How about Twilight? She said, well, we're not talking about Twilights and so we're talking about reasonable people and people that are busy with their jobs and they're not going to carry the book to school for like 6 more weeks until they're going to finish. People want to start it today and finish it tomorrow. So she said, attention span. And that's why we need to cut it. So from 500, we reduced it to 300. And so when you already have the layout, you already have the table of contents, like which one am I going to keep and which one I'm going to just toss it. And it's not that I was creating the characters, it was my life. So what exactly is important for my life and what it's not. Well, everything is important to me. Hello, I lived it. And yeah, but what is important to others? So that's where pretty much you would have to really figure out what's going to attract others, and you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So that's how the process came into being. And again, the writing itself, it took me 9 months because I had only 6 months. So before my mom passed away, she knew that I got another contract for the book, and I'm writing the book in her memory and for her and for my family. And after she passed away, the book was almost done, and then the editing process, which I thought that it's going to take like 3 weeks. Yeah, it's really, you are rewriting the book because you have outside people that are going to look at your writing, but it's not the writing. It's like, is this page going to be passed by the reader or not? Is this chapter weak? People are going to say, okay, it's a really weak chapter, so let me just read 3 more. Boring. So they were looking, my publisher said, just lay out your whole book and tell me the peaks. How many peaks do you have? Okay, she said, if you are going to see this book made into a movie, which one of those peaks would you consider? And she said, if you have 3, you can toss it. You have to have at least 10. So the writing was one, but then thinking Hollywood was fulfilling. And even nowadays, I have friends that are working for the industry. They say, we don't read scripts that are longer than 140 pages, 120 pages right now. I was like, but you used to read scripts that were 300. I said, well, not anymore. So.
Can I ask you, how did you find or meet your publisher?
Remember the dating thing? Okay. So I don't believe in coincidences. Okay. So I think that whatever has to happen will happen to you. And I'm a huge believer of the science of numerology and laws of attraction and the power and the energies that we put out there. So I was part of this dating company, and so the matchmaker, the head matchmaker, wrote the book about dating. So that kind of like, I was their client, and so that kind of like prompted the idea, well, what if I'm going to write a book about this? So when I jotted down each and every person's name, the agent, the publisher, and so on and so forth, the editors, it so happened that hers was there. I asked her, but what I've noticed, because there are so many books that are being published and because there is so much competition, people are really afraid to share what they know about the publishing process. Well, I'm not going to tell you because maybe she's a better writer than I am and that she's going to become famous. I'm like, you know what, everybody has a star, everybody has a destiny. Stop being so jealous, and start sharing. So she didn't want to tell me anything about her agent, and we were friends. And I said, fine, how difficult is it, really? So I jotted down, I Googled these people, and it so happened that one of the agents that she mentioned was mentioned in her book, right? The name. So I Googled her, and she was an agent, but she also had stocks in Hampton Roads, the publishing company. So I am at this friend of mine's house. we have dinner. It's the same family we stayed with when we came to the United States. So when we came to the United States, it was the same family. So I don't drink any alcohol. No. So they were drinking, having fun, and I'm bored to death, and I'm on the computer. And I said, oh, I have 3 names, like 10 agents, and let's just narrow down to 3. And just let's send like letter of, not even Q letter, letter of interest. Hi, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. One never responded. The second one said, I would like a book proposal. I was like, oh, what's that? Right? Because like, okay. So in the meantime, I'm opening up another search book proposal. And how do I do it? Right? And then the third person, Betty, said, why don't you send me some writing? A sample of your writing. So I did. She said, that's kind of funny. It's hilarious. Why don't we meet up? And so she lives in Del Mar. I drove to Del Mar. We met up and she said, what exactly do you want with this dating book? I said, well, I want to write an intercultural dating book because we're coming from so many different cultures, from many different backgrounds, and whatever it's allowed in my culture is not allowed in your culture, and that very many times the differences, the misunderstandings are coming from because we cannot really picture ourselves on the other side of the fence. She said, okay, that's interesting. Let's talk about that. Well, sure enough, I went home, I put the whole plan together, and I said, this is what I want to do. She said, well, done deal. And I signed the contract. So after I signed the contract, then my phone call came, and I said, I don't want, and so she was the one that worked with me to get this one up. So she became not only agent, but she also opened up her own publishing company. She pulled out from Hampton Roads, and she created a boutique company, publishing company. And she said, my company is only going to deal with powerful memoirs that will be switched and made into movies. So that's why when she was like, I need 10 points, because right now she's shopping it around in Hollywood and so on and so forth. She said, I really think people don't really know what happened in Eastern Europe, and there are tons of things. Because the book has been, for a couple of weeks right now, bestseller on Amazon under Romania's history, and also psychology and mysticism. So she said, obviously there are a couple of things that people are looking for, so I really think we have a great chance of bringing this to this.
And if you have any questions,
I mean, really, that's why I'm here. Because, I mean, for sure you can totally read the book.